Hi, this is Winnie Wilkinson, host of Hey Neighbor Hey. And we have a very wonderful show today. And we have the fabulous Tanya or Tatiana. And we are going to discuss housing in the state of Vermont. And we're also going to discuss a bill that she's working on about just cause evictions in the state of Vermont because we believe that it is something that is needed to assist with the prolonged emergency housing in the state of Vermont. And I will now hand it over to my friend and an humanitarian and activist for the poor people of the state of Vermont, Tatiana.
Winnie, it's so nice to be here. I'm Tanya Vyhovsky. I'm a state senator. I represent actually a large chunk of Chittenden County. But when I make laws, I'm making them for the whole state. And one of the reasons I first ran for office was because I didn't see myself represented. I grew up in a poor single-parent home. I am the only renter in the Senate. And what I really realized is we needed people in those positions to be fighting for everyday people, the people who our policies most impact. And so that's why I'm there. And the day that I stop fighting for those things is the day it's time for me to retire.
You're too young to retire.
But yes, so as you pointed out, one of the things that I am working on is it's an omnibus tenant protection bill, but it does include just cause eviction, also known as good cause eviction. And what that is, it's very simple. And what it says is that you can't evict someone for no reason. We saw a pause in evictions during the COVID-19 crisis to make sure people stayed housed and safe. And then as we came out of that, we saw a huge increase in evictions. And unfortunately, a large percentage of those are for no cause. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean there isn't cause, but it means that the landlord isn't going through the due process to prove cause. And it's my belief that housing is a human right. And that if you are going to take the step to take someone out of their housing, there should be a process that goes through the courts that is due process, and not simply, well, I said you had to leave. And so that is why I've put that in the bill. It's why I've fought for it since I was first elected in 2020. And we now have 5 communities that have passed good cause eviction via charter change, and yet the State House has yet to actually verify any of those charter changes. So Burlington, Essex, Winooski, Montpelier, and Brattleboro have all done charter measures where they've been supported by the majority, and in most cases a huge majority. I believe the margin in Burlington was 66% of the voters supported a good cause eviction charter change, and yet that has been sitting on the wall not passing, which is not just bad for our renters and bad for housing, but it's bad for democracy. When 66% of a community says we want this, I don't think the State House should be the space saying no, well, we don't agree with you. So there's a lot of moving pieces, but for me, good cause is a really important protection to keep people in their homes. We know some of the people that have been evicted and are living in unsheltered homelessness right now are there because of no cause eviction. We actually know that 2 people died in a tent a couple of weeks ago because they lost their housing due to a no cause eviction. So this will save lives.
Yes, I definitely believe that. Is there a percentage on how many evictions we have for no cause post-COVID?
So every year that data is collected, and the last year that we actually have data for is 2023, and I'm kind of digging deeper into the recesses of my brain to remember 2023 data, but it was close to 50%.
Yes, that sounds correct. And from my observation, the marginalized community, the minority community are the ones who are most affected by the no-cause evictions. And I would appreciate if the legislators can address that as well.
Well, I think the important thing to recognize is due to the structural racism built into our systems, any detrimental policy is likely to impact the marginalized communities more because of how that is structurally built in. And so it comes as no surprise to me that no cause eviction impacts our marginalized communities more, because I think as you unpack any policy, that's going to be what you find. So, and I think we have to address the surface with no cause, but we also have to really unpack the structural racism that means that harm is always done more to people who have been systematically harmed forever.
And one of my goals is to, and I'm researching how to go about that, is that in order for us to do any changes in Vermont, systematic reform.
Yes. Yeah, it has to be structural reform, not just tweaking around the edges.
Yes.
Yeah.
Structural reform. And instead of seeing certain people as three-quarters of a human being, which is still being sought after now, I believe that we should see each other as human beings. Hence the name of the show, Hey Neighbor, Hey, I'm Your Neighbor.
Yes. Yes. And anytime I'm, talking about making these types of changes, I think that's really critically important that we highlight. When people are talking about individuals who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness, those are our community members, those are our neighbors. And I think it's really, really important that we drive that home, because I think a lot of times that systematic dehumanization, whether it is because you're experiencing unsheltered homelessness, or you are struggling with substance use, or you are a different race, is how this harm is perpetuated. So I think it is really important that we are not only fighting for that structural change, not only fighting for the harm reduction like just cause eviction, but also really driving home we're all people and we have to be in this together.
Yes. Coexist to exist. Yes. And the thing about it, what I first met you when you were working or doing the bill for Second Chance. And there's something that you have left with me. You were there for the early morning conference. Then you had to do other stuff, but you were there for the night when we screened that movie. And I was like, wow, that is what a person who wants to see a change, or who wants all of us to be part of the process, to the progress, to that change. And I kept following you, and as soon as I see your name on the bill, I'm like reading, and I see the humanness that you bring into it. Even when certain bills, it was more masculine, the rejection was, I sense masculinity, and whereas you were doing generalized and the dumb it down on the masculinity, Tom, I just sat there and I was like, but you kept fighting.
Yes.
And
yeah, and it's exhausting sometimes to, keep fighting and keep pushing. But I think what drives me is my people. Like I'm not, sometimes it feels in the moment like I'm there fighting alone, like I'm screaming into the void. But then I remember I have all my neighbors outside and they're fighting with me. They've got my back.
Yes.
And so it's, and maybe that is in part too because I cut my teeth as a grassroots organizer. I cut my teeth on the Healthcare as a Human Right campaign. I remember what it's like to fight outside the building.
Yes.
And I think bringing some of that energy into the building is desperately needed.
Yes, it's desperately needed. And I can reassure you, as long as I'm alive, at every one of those hearings for the bill, I would be in the crowd. Because I am part of that. Part of that change that we need to even exist.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think what we've seen over at least my lifetime is a consolidation of resources into a smaller and smaller group of people's hands, while the vast majority of people are grappling with barely being able to survive, and unfortunately, in too many instances, not being able to survive.
Yes.
And that to me is just unacceptable.
Exactly.
We've got to do better. And the second look policy is back on the table this year.
Yes.
We're going to be fighting for it again.
Yes. And I when I saw that you were with the Starbucks employee, you and your dog was there with the people, I am like, session is not even started. And there you are. And it's not a 9 to 5, it's not a 8 to 4. It's wherever you're needed, whether you're running for office or not, you're there.
That's what it's about. It's what
That
it
is
should be
it's-
about.
That is what it should be about. And I would seek out that because this is how I am as well. I will speak up when I need to.
Absolutely. No,
Spill the tea.
it's where it is what it's supposed to be about. And I think a lot of times, the word politician has become very jaded because it is so ego driven. And I really view the job as a public servant. And
Yes.
that doesn't mean I don't think we should be paid livable wages. But I do see that is what it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And I can't be at everything all the time because I also have a full-time job.
Yes.
But if I am needed, of course, I'm going to show up to the best of my ability. And if
Yes.
for some reason, there was another union organizing thing I wasn't able to go to, but what I
Yeah.
was able to do was write them a letter of
Exactly.
support. So there's always a way, I think,
Yes.
to plug in and help.
But I think that the mere fact that we know you're a phone call away,
Yes.
a message away, is either you can or you can't. And we know that you cannot divide yourself into all these different facets. But moving forward, how we as a community can assist you
Yeah.
in getting this bill
Yep.
across the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, it's an omnibus bill. It has a bunch of tenant protections in it, including good cause eviction, including rent stabilization, and guaranteed right to counsel if someone's going through eviction proceedings, as well as eviction expungement. So that would actually, after a certain period of time, wipe an eviction off your record, because it's almost impossible to find housing if you have an eviction on your record. I'm trying to think what else it includes. Oh, the other really important thing I think it includes is the tenant and community first right to purchase. So if a rental building is being sold, the tenants that live there would have the first opportunity to buy that building. And the bill would also establish a revolving loan fund. So it would actually provide some of the capital to be able to put that down payment down. So it helps democratize housing as a whole. And so that's everything that is currently included in the bill. Once I have a draft of the bill in hand, I actually will pull together a group of housing advocates and community members who have more firsthand than I have experienced the challenges within the housing market to see if anything's missing, see if anything needs to be changed. And then once we've all kind of signed off on it, it'll be released for introduction. And then we're going to have to start putting the outside pressure on to get it taken off the wall, to get the hearings that we need it to have. And so what I'm also doing in the meantime is working with some community organizing groups, as well as just taking every email that comes into me saying, I want to help, and compiling that in a spreadsheet so that when the day comes that we need to show up at the State House and put pressure on the committee or show up for testimony on a certain aspect of the bill.
Sign me in.
Yes, that I can just quickly send out, and I know who I'm sending it out to, because
Yes.
I think something like this in the current political climate is going to take an inside-outside strategy.
Yes.
It's going to take a constant communication with me. I've got one foot in the door there, but my other foot is holding the door open for my community.
Yes.
And so I think we can do really hard things that sort of traditional politics deem impossible.
Yes.
When we work outside of how it's always been done. It's not going to be top down. It's not going to be run by a lobbyist. It's going to be me communicating with all of you, hey, I need you to show up today. Hey, I need people who've experienced this to show up today.
Yeah.
And the same, knowing that you can't show up for everything all the time, because all of you too can't divide yourselves that way, but with enough of a group, we can
Yes.
always get someone there.
Yes.
And that's what I think it's going to take. We've really, at no point in our history as a nation, have the types of changes that the people who are most struggling needed come because someone at the top decided, like, hey, we should be nicer. It's always come because the community rose up and the community demanded better.
Yes.
And I think that's what it's going to take. I guess the difference in this moment is you've got an ally and they're telling you exactly
Yes.
when. I need you to stand up now.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And so that's what I need is to, who do you know in your community who has had these experiences, who wants to get involved in this fight? Have them reach out to me so we can get them on the list and start sending those action alerts out to them, because this is impacting more and more people. I would say the majority of Vermonters at this point have
Yes.
tenuous housing, or,
Yes.
and sometimes it's even people who own their homes.
Yes.
But, I mean, I am in a district where more than 50% of my constituents are renters, and yet I'm one renter out of 30 people in the Senate with double-digit landlords. And so we do have a big fight.
Oh, we have landlords in the Senate.
Many.
Okay.
And so we have a big fight.
Yes.
But I think we can win that fight. And we do actually have people, and they've reached out to me, who are small landlords in the community who support these changes. And so we have to connect with them too. I think we
Yes.
also have to be thinking about our web and where are our allies that may sit in unlikely places, because they're out there as well. And the more we can build a coalition, the better able we are going to be to make it too uncomfortable to maintain the status quo.
Yes. Yes. So are we going to send out like surveys as to your experiences as a tenant?
We could certainly do that. You know, I have a graduate social work student who's interning for me this year, and we've been doing a lot of conversation about how can we engage people, how can we, you know, get as many people as possible, and some of it's going to be word of mouth, because rightfully so, a lot of the people who have experienced harm and violence at the hands of the system aren't going to trust me. And it's because of the position that I hold, and I understand that. And so there's going to be a level of word or mouth of mouth with people saying, no, we actually know her. She's on our side. And so I can send out surveys, but that's not going to get us into all of the places we need to go, because I sit in that position of power that is not to just be trusted. It's been really violent and harmful.
Yes. I will volunteer my time
I
to
appreciate that.
conduct surveys all over the state of Vermont.
And I so appreciate that, and what I know is that relational organizing
Yes.
is the most
Grassroots,
powerful.
boots on the ground.
Exactly.
And it makes a soft landing when the person sounds like you and looks like you, and you're saying, this is how, I'm not asking you to give your soul for a piece of silver, I'm asking you for factual information. You have your receipt, spill the tea.
Yes, that's what we need. That's what we need.
That's all we need.
And I don't want to offer a simple piece of silver. I want to offer structural change, and I can't do it alone.
Exactly, you can't do it alone. And this is something that with the election, you listen to people speak, and my gas bill is going to go down because this person say it's going to go. No, it's not.
No, it isn't.
Oh, my grocery bill is going to go down because this. No, it's not. There is a process.
Yeah.
This one person can't make these changes, just do a magic wand. And so, like I said, I am 100% with you. I will use my social media and my interaction with human beings to spread the word. This is what we need to get to this point.
Yeah.
And in order for us to get to this point, this is the input from you that we need. And I understand that some people do have a pass. And again, I'm a supporter of second chance. And if this person already has spent their time and they are back into society, we should not have that hanging over their head. And so a lot of people that I speak to, they will say, well, you know, as soon as they pull my background, this is going to really hinder the process. No, it's not.
It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to, but the point is that these are the very people that I would point out and said, well, this person was.
Absolutely. We all have a past.
And some people with a past are wearing robes.
Yes, exactly. We all have a past, and I think your point is incredibly important, right? The way different people with a similar past are treated
Yes.
is glaringly obvious if you are even paying a little bit of attention.
Yes. And even within the homeless society, a poor person is treated totally different than even the same situation with an African American or Hispanic person.
Of course.
The statistic shows it.
Of course. That is across everything.
Everything.
That's that systemic racism. It's baked in. You
It's baked
can't
in.
do something
Right.
without it happening unless you're intentionally addressing it.
Exactly. And what I find is that even when there is a gray area, personalized racism steps in, whether it's someone wearing a badge. I work for the state of Vermont, but then you on the clock, but still you bring in your personalized
Of course.
racism to affect
Of course.
housing for a person who is qualified for that housing.
Absolutely. Unless you're doing constant self-reflection to examine that and unpack that. I mean, the reality of it is when you live in a racist nation, it internalizes. And unless you're constantly reflecting and challenging that, it's gonna seep in. It doesn't make you a bad person, but it means you're doing harm.
Yes.
And so we have to be constantly looking at, like, and that's why I say, like, it's not gonna change and it's going to do harm unless there's real intention to say, where is the bias in this?
Yes.
And if there's not obvious bias, then where is the reparation in this? Because
Yes.
if it appears neutral, it is going to either benefit those who have always been benefited more or harm those who have always been harmed more, because we don't live in a neutral society.
Yes, we don't. And I can tell you, my name, Winnie Wilkinson, gets me in the door.
Yeah.
And the moment they they realize that, oh no, I got people that I would show up for appointments, and they'll ask me for my ID to verify who I am. And I totally understand when that happens. And I would smile and give it because
Yeah.
you didn't expect me, huh?
Right.
And so I don't know if you ever look at the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Cindy Poitier. That's the movie that you should look at,
Okay.
and you will realize the reaction that some people will get when they have an interaction with me. However, I can tell you that if I have to call you out, I will.
Good. More, that has to happen.
And in Vermont, some people are not accustomed to that.
Oh, I know.
They're not accustomed to being called out, and I always for 2024, I look a lot at what's happening in Washington and whatever, and I see like when I clap back. Well, now it has a name. But when I clap back, when I experience this discrimination or racism, and I clap back, I was named as having mental problems, uneducated, and I'm college educated, and whatever. However, when Representative Jasmine Crockett did that clap back, and now it's known, and it has a name on it, some people are tiptoeing around, well, they don't want to have a clap back. Well, that alone should tell you that your perception that you're playing out should be eliminated.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is another space where we have to partner together. I think there are
Yes.
certainly points and times, and it's one of the things that frustrates me. I hold privilege in my office, I hold privilege in the way that I look, and there are points and times where I think we need to tap in our white allies to say, I
Yes.
actually need you to name this, because
Yes.
I have to do it with my male colleagues.
Yeah.
I need you to name it, because if I name it, I'm gonna get called a nasty name, and I'm gonna
Right.
get told that I'm overreacting, but if
Right.
you name it, you are gonna be protected, and it's
Right.
gonna be believed more.
Right.
And so I think there has to be that communication too, about when do I need to tap in,
Yeah.
because I can name it in a way that is gonna not get the same response.
Right.
Like we've gotta be, again, we've just gotta be in this together.
Well, you got an ally.
So do you.
Yes. I will be your ally with anything to do with the second chance, with housing, and any bill that makes common sense.
Yeah.
And what we need in 2025, and after Kwanzaa, we just finished Kwanzaa, the collective thinking and whatever. We came up with this year, 2025, will be the year of spill the beans because we got the receipt.
Yes,
It's time that we cut this wide open.
it is, well, it's well past time.
Yeah, well, we've been dancing around it, and Vermont could be a beacon
We could be.
in the process. We legalized marijuana. We have same-sex marriage. We have, what else that I'm proud that Vermont made available that is benefiting every Vermonter who desire. We need racism to be addressed in a way that is going to be effective. If you wear a badge and you decide to, I'm trying to use a political word, to mess around, and you will find out.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we need more accountability.
more accountability.
Absolutely. That's another bill that I've put forward since I was in the House. So for the last 4 years was a municipal police accountability bill.
Yes.
To really, ensure that we can see in. There's not only is there a lack of accountability at this point, there's a complete lack of transparency.
Yes.
We don't know what's happening.
Yes.
And so I think to make any inroads in making things better, we have to have windows in to know what's even happening. And unfortunately, that bill has never even seen a hearing, but
Yes.
we have the ACLU and I have put that bill forward
Yes.
every single year, and we will be again.
Yes. But
To really create citizen oversight.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the history of policing is fraught with.
it was made for us.
It was not.
No, the police departments is when the freed slaves.
Oh, I know.
Then they catch us back and
Yep.
we back
Oh,
into
I know
slavery.
that the history of policing is started in slave catching and
Right.
then was grown into union busting.
Yes.
It was always meant to
Keep us in check.
exactly.
Stay between the lines. Stay in your lane. I sit under St. Albans Police Advisory Board.
Okay.
And St. Albans Police Advisory Board was formed after the George Floyd incident. And I can tell you I've seen some changes.
Good.
I've seen a lot of pushback. I've seen a lot of dumb downs. A dumb down is that you would say that this is a cookie cutter, but somebody, oh no, that's not a cookie cutter. Oh yes, it is.
Yeah.
And we need a stronger legislation that will affect changes.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be the good old boy club, and then you have the police advisory board with no teeth, that even when you get something to bite on, you can't do anything because there's no teeth.
Well, and that was one of the things with my municipal oversight bill is it would have mandated citizen-led municipal oversight. It very clearly laid out who should and should not make up the majority of that board. One of the aspects of that only one current or former police officer was able to be on the board. Representatives from the mental health community represented. It was very meant to be inclusive and thoughtful about who was there, and it gave them teeth. Again, there's been a lot of pushback. We haven't managed to get it off the wall, but I will introduce it again. But it was trying to address exactly what you're pointing to, is that we can't just stand up these performative boards to pat ourselves on the back and make us feel like we did something. We actually have to do something.
Yes, yes. And I know one thing, that when the verdict had passed, public outcry about our chief here in St. Albans not making a public statement, and he did make a statement. So those are, and again, I'm only one person that if I sit there and something is happening, and everyone is like, oh, they have to be quiet. No, I would let you know, no. So we are trying, but then I put a target on my back as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't have enough people who are willing to make that self-sacrifice for democracy, for truth and democracy.
Absolutely.
And the drive in me is that if Rosa Parks, well, the ladies before Rosa Parks, and Rosa Parks had that self-sacrifice, that I could ride the front of the bus today, I have to devote my time as well. so that my generations, because my generations obviously are Americans, I have 4 generations Americans, and you know, that they will know that I came and I didn't fall in.
Yeah.
I helped to make the change. I assist in the change, that we all could get along. If you see me as a human being like I see you as a
Yes.
human being. You know, I have a landlord, an ex-landlord, that said to me that half the time he spoke to me, he didn't understand what I said. And I was like, Hence, we got Hey Neighbor Hey. That is why this talk, another reason why this talk show exists.
Yeah.
For people like me, who, because you think that you're white, you're a man, that you're going to dumb me down. Well, you have an accent, so, you know. You have an accent in my world.
Of course I do.
And I'm still trying to communicate with you.
Of course.
So there's these personalized things that we have to check and realize this is not your house where you're in your 4 walls. And so you have all these rules and regulations that everybody got to fall by. You're in the community. And there will be teachable moments. And you don't put a label on a person because you said something to this person that this person didn't like, or was very racist or very derogatory, and this person clapped you right back into your seat. And another, I like to bring up these national stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with OC out of Bronx, New York. Her favorite is Baby Girl, Please. And what that simply means is that what you're saying is so outrageous that I'm gonna take off my earring and snatch my wig off to deal with you. And so that's what Baby Girl, Please. A lot of people didn't know what it is. They were like, well, what does that mean? Trust me, you don't want to go. You don't want to know what happens after she says, "Baby girl, please," and you continue. So these teachable moments, and a lot of people. This is. I'm going to bring this to St. Albans now. This is St. Albans. You guys come from out of state, and you want to. This is America. St. Albans is still part of America.
Yeah.
And it's the last time I checked, as an American citizen, I could live in anywhere in America.
Yeah.
So, and I've been here, next month going to be 24 years.
Yeah.
And I've met some incredible people.
Absolutely.
And we are friends. I go to their house. They come to we had teachable moments. And I could tell you that because of the communication style. And one of my friends would be like, okay, this is what you're trying to say, right? And I'm like, yeah, same thing. And we have this communication style now where, and then her husband, I was saying same thing. And I'm like, when he said it, because again, we're taking the time to look at each other in the face and communicate.
Which is the most human and important thing there is.
Simple.
It is simple. And I think so many of the challenges we're facing is because of the degradation of communication and the degradation of community.
Yes. Yes. And it takes different people, diversity in a community to make it strong.
The strongest and most vital, vibrant communities are those with the most diversity, and both diversity of experience and diversity of
Age.
and
Hair color.
thought and hair. Like, we have to have that. You know, I look at Vermont, and when I think about the communities that are the most beautiful and the most vibrant, they're the most diverse communities.
Yes.
That bring influence from all across the world and different cultural experience, and just and let that come together, and none of it has to be erased. Because I think a
Right.
lot of times we talk about the United States as a melting pot, which is a little problematic for me, because it
Yes.
sort of has this idea that we're all going to meld together and become the same.
Yes.
That's not, at least what I'm looking for. I
Yes.
want, you know, as a Ukrainian American, and as someone who still has family, you know, in Eastern Europe, and I don't want to have to erase that part of my identity to melt into the American pot. I want to be able to talk about that. I want to be able to highlight that. I want to be able to invite my community in for the cultural pieces that are important to me. And that's different than melting together.
Yes, yes. Because I things that I learned here in Vermont, coming from New York City, because I used to work for Citibank, and after 9/11 I moved here because here was the safest place to live. And I called look up that time we had the yellow pages, and I looked up and I saw the dry cleaners, and then I called and I let them know I have clothes, to dry clean and what time they were going to pick it up, and they're like, "We don't pick it up. You have to drop it off."
Yes.
Coming from New York City is like,
Yes.
what?
I have a basket of dry cleaning in my car to drop off after this.
Yeah, you see?
I get it.
And then when there was a Chinese restaurant again, I called them. I was like, "Oh, they deliver the food." I had to go pick the food. I order it. Yes, it's there, but you gotta go pick it up. I
Yeah.
said, but now it's changed a little bit where, you could have it delivered, but the dry cleaning still they didn't get
Yeah.
that far as yet.
Not yet.
Exactly. So if I could come in and I can adjust from my lifestyle and my norms into this, I just can't understand why there's this closed door.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could really figure that out.
Yeah.
I do, and it's coded in so many places in
Yes.
Vermont where, our progressive-minded selves don't recognize how that is coded. When
Yes.
people talk about Vermont traditions, or when people talk about they don't recognize, I think, what they're really talking about
Right.
is whiteness, and what they're really talking about is nativist.
Yes.
And we have to. I mean, I know I find it important to challenge that
Yes.
and to push against that, because I do. I think sometimes people don't even know that what they're saying is slamming that door shut and not actually opening their world and their lives to the beautiful vibrancy that they could experience.
And they make decisions based
Yes,
on
they
their
do.
narrow-mindedness and have, like one person said to me, the American dream is the English. Puerto Rico is part of America. So if we're going to say the American dream, the Puerto Rican dream is also part of the American dream.
Yeah.
And they speak Spanish.
They do. I mean, and the American dream is an aspiration we are far away from meeting.
Yeah.
When I think about what that promises, it promises that everybody has their basic needs met. It promises that we don't have people freezing to death in tents. It promises that housing is a human right, medical care is a human right, and we're a long way away from that, but that is certainly what I'm fighting for everyone.
Yes, yes, everyone, and this is something that I believe if there's more education about addressing these issues, not at the state level only, but in your communities, potlucks, Freedom Day, Community Day,
Yeah.
and everyone come dressed in their culture. And you get to know me, and I get to know you. And not when your child leave here and go to college out of state
Yeah.
and come back and with the wider knowledge. And then you're like, well, I didn't bring you up that way. Well, this person is actually evolving.
Yeah, people change. Yeah,
Evolution,
absolutely.
evolving.
Absolutely.
Mentally, spiritually, emotionally,
Yeah.
environmentally. There is more outside of what you know if you're willing to even tiptoe
Scratch the surface a little.
outside the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting to me in a country the size of the United States that we would have the idea, because we're a massive country, that there would be
Yes.
one language. It's always been interesting. As I said, I still have a lot of family that lives in Europe, and most of them speak 5, 6, 7
Yes,
languages.
yes.
Because, well, yes, they may live in Hungary, where they speak Hungarian. It's a 20-minute train ride to Austria where they
Yes.
speak German,
Yeah.
and if you go the other way, you're in Romania where they speak Romanian.
Yeah.
And so you just learn all the
Yes,
languages.
yes, right.
And it's so interesting to me that we would assume as a nation this size that it would be one language. It's
We have
not.
Canada right next
Of
door.
Canada right there, where, and even Canada. Canada is another large country that has multiple languages because
yeah.
it's only Quebec that
Yeah.
speaks French.
Yeah.
And so it's the language piece has always been so interesting. And as someone who grew up speaking multiple languages,
Yeah,
it's
me
always
too.
because at my grandmother's house we spoke Hungarian, at home we spoke English. Like
Yeah.
the community I was in, we had a lot of friends who spoke Spanish, and so we just figured it out.
Yeah.
But it opens the door to just so
To
much.
learn about
Yes,
culture.
absolutely.
Yes. And to know that in the common human being, there's a lot of commonalities.
Yes. And you don't have to speak the same language to feel that.
We don't have to look alike neither.
We don't.
Could you imagine if everyone would look like you or everyone would look like me?
How boring.
Boring.
Would that
Yeah, boring. And so, I see our prolonged emergency housing in one of the richest countries in the world.
be? Yeah. It's unfathomable.
Of-
It's barbaric.
Thank you. And if we go right across the border, which I do a lot, and of course, as a community person, I would look at the different communities, and how can they get such an effective way of dealing with anyone that is going through a financial crisis
I mean, it's a
with humanity?
with humanity. I mean, it's part of the social contract that I think the rugged individualism in the United States doesn't allow for, and I think we have to challenge that. The same is true in most of Europe. And I see it in the little conversations I have with people there, and the policies. There is this social contract that, of course, we take care of one another.
Yes.
And that is so missing in the rugged individualism that this country was founded on.
Yes.
And that's where I think we've got to pick away at and that's why I think that the language and talking about yes, that person's experiencing homelessness and they're our community member, they're our neighbor,
Yes.
is so important because it humanizes in a way that forces us to evaluate the social contract more.
Yes. The social. I was born under the British flag, so I do have British rights. And we learn Latin in school. Of course, you learn French because of the cultural melting pot, and you have dole. You have what you call here Section 8 housing, but we have communal living. And you qualify for the communal living. And how do you think that would be of benefit to Vermont?
I think it would be hugely beneficial. It's actually so I have 3 major housing bills, and we talked about the tenant protection bill, but one of the housing bills that I'm also looking at is really looking at how we bond for and create social housing as an alternative to project-based Section 8 housing. Because when you concentrate poverty and disability like that, you're creating vulnerability. And we saw that with what was happening at Decker Towers.
Yes.
And so I've been in contact, so Vienna has one of the most well-known worldwide models of social housing, and I've been in contact with some of their city councilors, as well as people in a couple of other places, including a couple of places in the United States that have started to explore that as an option.
New Hampshire?
I didn't know New Hampshire. New York and my goodness,
Maine.
Yes, thank you. New York and Maine were 2 of the places in the United States, but I've actually been working on crafting a bill that would launch a pilot social housing project in Vermont, because I think it would be incredibly beneficial.
Yes.
Because, as you know from experiencing that, it creates naturally occurring, multi-generational, mixed income housing, which inevitably creates healthy community.
Yes.
So it's not just about housing.
Yes.
It's about community.
It's about community, right? And it's about interacting different generations, different cultures,
Yes.
the social norm of the environment.
Yeah.
And I believe it will be prices. I've been researching tiny homes. And every time I bring that subject out, I get shut right down. And I'm like, well, we have trailer parks,
Yeah.
but it's a different concept.
Yes. But I think we have to be thoughtful about it, because I know I think it was in the Netherlands, they tried to do a tiny home project, but they did it exactly the way we do project-based
Yeah.
low-income housing, and it was kind of an abject failure. But again, it's that naturally occurring mix of generation and culture and income that creates what works, not just shoving all the poor people in one place.
Yes, yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming here today. I think that we had a very nice conversation, and I know it's going to continue on YouTube because people will give their thoughts on what we should be doing. And again, I am your ally in this process. I will be there in Montpelier as much as you need me. I will be there, and we need to make a change. So once again, this is Winnie Wilkinson of Hey Neighbor Hey, and I have my wonderful guest who drove all the way to St. Albans to give us this wonderful show, and she's working on the bill. And we would need each one of you to assist us in getting this bill across the table, because we need to make a change. 2025, we need a change where each person should not be worried about keeping a roof over their head and putting food in their mouth and the lights on. We need a change. Poverty is not a crime, it's an existence.
And it's a policy choice.
And it's a policy choice. Thank you. One love. Peace out. Awesome. All right.